Welcome back. As we mentioned, it has been a year since the abduction of 5-year-old Dulce Alaves from a park in Cumberland County. Kenneth Lanning is a retired FBI agent who spent 30 years solving dozens of cases just like this one. He spoke with us from his home in Virginia. Sir, thank you so much for spending some time talking to us about this case, a horrible case, a little girl abducted from a park. It's been a year. What are the chances they're going to find this girl alive?
Yeah, what I always tell people in my presentations and my writings is that there's a chance, as long as there's any chance. If it was one chance in a billion, it doesn't change what the police and how the police have to respond. You have to assume until you find her either alive or dead, you have to keep searching and looking, whatever the chances are.
I know there's been cases where they've found girls alive. I know that's been, children alive long after they were abducted. Is that most cases?
No, it's not most cases. And the other thing that's very important when you start to throw this language around is there's a difference. Many people use the terms missing and abducted interchangeably, but they're not the same time, not the same thing. A lot of times we know the child is missing with absolute certainty. Whether she was abducted, why she was abducted, how she was abducted plays a big role in it. Now, in a type of case that is sometimes called infant abduction, where children, very young children, are taken from hospitals and things like that, those children are frequently found alive a significant time later. But if it's a stranger abduction, sexually motivated, then the odds are less, but the odds don't really matter. You have to keep investigating as if there was a chance you're going to find her. You never know how two or more pieces of information are going to come together. And that's why the police frequently get involved with the media and try to publicize these cases in the hopes that somebody will come forward, somebody who did see something will remember it, recall it, and come forward.
In these cases, is it usual for the FBI to get involved? Because right now I hear everything from the county prosecutor and the local police. Is there FBI involved? Do you know?
I don't know for sure, but the FBI can be involved in two ways. Kidnapping is a federal violation as long as the child has been moved across state lines. We don't know that. So the FBI early on, within so many hours, can assume interstate travel and can enter the case from an investigative point of view. The unit that I worked in for many, many years, the behavioral science unit, can enter and is involved in these cases in a more consulting role. And that can be done in almost any case, whether there's a federal violation or not. So my guess is there's probably the FBI is probably monitoring the investigation to determine how they could be of any assistance. They can provide assistance in many ways, laboratory, behavioral science unit, many different things.
It's interesting you put out that requirement that would have to be interstate, because just this summer, prosecutors did get a tip that forced them to go out of state to follow that tip. We just got that in the last week. That would trigger the FBI, would it not?
Well, actually, what the FBI learned is you can't wait until you've proved the child has been moved across state lines. You've got to move quickly, particularly if the police department involved in the investigation is a small one and doesn't have a lot of experience. So the FBI will enter the case and assume that there may have been interstate travel. Now, you can't prosecute the case if it turns out the child never left the state. It would have to be prosecuted in state court when it's solved.
I mean, here we are a year later, and this is still being covered. It was a high-profile case. Does that keep the case alive, or is it a hindrance?
No, I think it keeps the case alive. It can sometimes be a hindrance, but in my opinion, in the opinion of many people, you don't have any other choice. The media is very often the vehicle by which this case gets solved. And so you have to deal with the media. And so things like this, an anniversary and other things like that that are going to bring renewed attention to the case are very important and may be the keys to solving it. So working with the media is a very important part of these cases. Sometimes it causes minor inconvenience, but you don't have any other choice. It generally, the good far outweighs the bad.
On that note, I'm going to have you reemphasize something that we've already pointed out, and that is that there may be somebody out there that knows something. It doesn't matter if they believe it's irrelevant. They should be coming forward.
Absolutely. So if you think you saw something and you're not sure it has anything to do with this, come forward, share that information, because very often it's in its totality that this starts to fit together. Something that you say by itself doesn't seem a lot, but somebody else said this, somebody else said that. You put all that together and you have a significant piece of information. But if you think you saw anything at all, come forward, or you think you know anything about this. Or sometimes you just know somebody that you've seen that has a child and you don't know where that child came from, and so on. All those kinds of things. Any little bit of information that you have that you think you may be relevant, I would encourage anyone to come forward.
Have you been involved in cases where a tip came in this late and it broke the case?
Absolutely. I mean, basically, there's not a lot of them, but I've been involved in cases that have been solved 9 months later, been involved in cases solved a year later, and probably the case that's got the most publicity is the case involving J.C. Dugard, which was solved 18 years later by somebody who just saw something that they were suspicious about and called it in.
Well, that gives us all hope, including the family. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate your time. Former FBI agent Kenneth Lanning. When Jersey Matters comes right back, a star on the motorcycle circuit comes home for a big race in front of the hometown fans. That's next.